to know that this chelik is a very interesting chelik, like I've spoken about before. It's speaking about the yesod of the psychology of a person, the innards of a person. And through that, we will get into the details, that's what we're going to speak about. And we're going to get into the details of the powers of a person and the different things that he can do. We eventually wants to get to prophecy, Ruach HaKodesh, but before that, we have today's subject. And that is that until now, we discussed that a person is made up of a nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida. He's made up of 5 aspects because we're speaking about the personality, the breakdown of the person. And as we're speaking about that, he spoke out last week about the power of sleeping. Now, why did he bring the power of sleeping? Because that's what we're going to be explaining today, what sleeping does for us, because from here till the end of the chapter, he's going to be speaking about the power of dreams. We are now in the dream factory. That is what we were going to be speaking about, dreams and the power of dreams in this year, and believe it or not, in the next year. Okay? Now, the truth is I could read inside and read it bit by bit, A, about the dream part, and B, about the sleeping part. The sleeping part we spoke about somewhat last week, but I want to put it all together in one thing. So I decided that before reading anything, and then we'll see, hopefully I have time afterwards to read, but before reading anything, I want to give a overview, like the art school overviews that they have in the introductions. That's an overview of this whole entire, I just had an interview with Nassim Sherman, that's what I thought. He explained how he did all his overviews and this, how he slowly taught himself how to do them. It was very interesting. What? I know they're very popular right now. But whatever. So over there, he basically over here, I want to give an overview to the idea of dreams, understanding how the dreams work, and this will explain to you bekalut. And then when we will read the Derech Hashem, I will read the rest of the Derech Hashem bli neder quickly. We'll be able to just read the Derech Hashem, understanding it very lucidly beforehand. Okay. You can take a nap. Now the best way to understand is everyone go to sleep. That's the way to go to sleep. It's all right, you guys are interested in doing it anyways, I understand. It's an incentive. We'll connect also sleeping and dreams all together. So let's get a explanation of this whole entire thing. This is very useful stuff to speak about at the Shabbos table, especially during the end of Parshas Bereishis, right, of Sefer Bereishis, at the end of all those Parshas at the end. Okay, so here we go. The idea of dreams. The idea of understanding dreams and going into them is a subject that is not so spoken about. The Derech Hashem speaks about it over here, but you don't really see it much spoken about in too many places. And it's one of these abstract, cryptic, unknown things that are somewhat known but not necessarily spoken about. Okay? For many, many years, it was something that was just considered shtuyot, not to talk about. No one focused on it. It was just considered the people who are, as we say, the Baal HaChochma, the scientists and the people of the know-how, even the philosophers, they didn't play much about dreams. They just held there was a lot of base, primitive, not needed to be learnt about ideas and concept. And it would be pushed from place to place. If you look in old scripts and old manuscripts, no one really writes so much about dreams. It wasn't a subject that was considered very important to speak about, something that has any meaning per se. It didn't have any substance to it. Okay, that was always the way that it was considered. That's why you don't see much about it. Of course, we know the person who was one of the people that amongst the Goyim, even though he was Jewish, that decided to exasperate this subject was, Freud. Sigmund Freud. Of course, we know he was Jewish, and I think he snatched a few things from Judaism. They even found a couple of Jewish books in his library. Freud was in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he even wrote a book called Dream Interpretation. It was not stam that he decided to write about dreams, but the reason why he did is it's very interconnected to his whole psychology breakdown, the way that he taught psychology, or the whole idea of modern psychology that we know about, even though they changed it 5,000 times since Freud himself. But his innovations of the ego and the ego and the superego and all the super ego and all the stuff that they have, so those are the 3 things, as we know. The ego, and the superego, if you pay attention to the way he writes it, it's very similar to the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. It has the same type of concepts as what it is. Meaning the psychology, the subconscious, as opposed to the conscience, and things that you have a spiritual type of connection to other things. He definitely has an overlap. I one time read somewhere that they found in his library a Shari Kedusha of Rav Chaim Vital. They did find a Shari Kedusha of Rav Chaim Vital, so I wouldn't be surprised if he got it from there. But anyways, over there he comes up with the idea of the conscience, and we know, of course, the subconscious. The subconscious was brought to the forefront by Freud. He held that much of the way we run our lives is based on the subconscious, and we know most of psychology has to do with exercising your subconscious. We know that many traumas, fears, things, drives that a person has to do with a place that's known as the subconscious, which is a place that we're not familiar with, or we're not only necessarily conscious of that area per se. And that's what that's why people are so interested in Freud's idea, because it brought out some secrets about everyone or about ourselves that we never knew about, and something, that I find incredibly, interesting about finding out the breakdown of a person. A person is a whole, not just a world, he's a universe, he's a galaxy. It's an incredible breakdown to say that a man, you could come up with everything saying Big Bangs created all this, but all the detailed complications of man and the way he thinks and everything like that, to come from a Big Bang has absolutely zero explanation. I don't think that anyone can come up with such an explanation. That we're such complicated creatures, and besides the fact being so different with free choice, I'm just saying the actual fact of how all our psychology works and our conscience and all that happened through Big Bangs. I don't even think with all the millions and billions of times that it happened, that could even come up, right? I don't think they come up and say that happened after a billion times. You can come up a billion times, this galaxy and this galaxy, maybe that you could do, but the breakdown and the conscience and the whole breakdown of a person is extremely complicated and an interesting subject. Al Kopanim. So this is, that's of course Sigmund Freud's Yesod of psychology. So with that, he went around and he decided to be choker, look into dreams. Why are dreams connected to the same thing? Because dreams have to do with the subconscious, as we all know. When a person is sleeping, his mind is dormant. Some people, we know their minds are dormant the whole day. And then by doing that, their subconscious comes to the forefront. Their subconscious comes to the forefront. They're able to think of things that they normally would not have thought about. They put, in a sense, of putting everything relaxed, and now the only thing that's active is the subconscious, and that's why you can end up having dreams, so to speak, and think of things that you are also familiar with, and different ideas, all gemished, as they say, mixed up from here to there, and come up with these interesting stories that we all are familiar with, that we have these types of dreams for the good or for the bad. We have all these types of dreams, and based on that, and that's why he wrote a whole entire, just give me half a second, that's why he wrote a whole entire book on dreams. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yeah, what do you want to say?
I wonder if he took the subconscious from celebrity.
Also, yeah. I spoke about it once in the Shabbat Gadol Drasha, if you remember, Shabbat Teshuvah Drasha. Some people say yes. There is such a style like that, because he did speak clearly. Rabbi Salanter before Freud spoke about the Koach HaDimyon. In his Igeret HaMusar, he writes that Dimyon is chofshi b'dimyono, it has no gvulot, and it can go as far as it wants, as opposed to the sechel, gives you parameters. That's exactly what we're saying here. When a person's awake, when he's alive, your sechel is the driving force. Your cognitive powers are what's driving the force, and the dimyon, your imagination, follows suit. As opposed to when you're sleeping, the imagination follows suit. You understand? That's what happens. Say again? Rabbi Shal, no, I heard that they found Yishar Kedusha. That's what I said they found. Wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, so that's that. The idea of the power of the thing. I didn't even know there was such thing as an imagination as a kid. I always remember just things until I started watching Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers' his whole epitome is just one thing: to be able to teach you how to imagine for the good or for the bad. I don't know if it feels so good. It's very into just think, live in La La Land and try to be like that. But anyways, that's good. It's interesting over there because in the book he couldn't help but address that there are those people that want to say that, and now the reason I bring you all this up thing, I want to show you that the Derech Hashem, you're talking about Rabbi Yisrael, the Derech Hashem over here where we are, the next paragraphs we're going to be reading, has way ahead, he's already 250 years ahead of Sigmund Freud, and he's in Italy, even better. And he's saying mamash, I don't want to say the same thing more than Freud, obviously, I'm not going to make comparisons. But he says the whole power of the dimyon is where it comes from. Okay, and the truth is it even comes from the Gemara, like we'll learn. But Al-Kopanim, the idea is that he was asked, Freud himself was asked, what about dream interpretation, meaning that dreams can tell you the future? The idea is that I could figure things out in the future based on dreams. Is that a possibility? And he basically summed it up in one word. It's a lot of nonsense. He didn't believe in the garbage. He said there's a lot of garbage. Shtuyot, I don't believe in any of this stuff. There's no such of this future telling because of dreams. Dreams are just a existence of your subconscious coming to the forefront, ideas that you have that are being played around, and you will never be able to see any type of future based on it. Any scientific evidence afterwards which was trying said that's purely unscientific. To speak out things like that, to connect being able to see the future based on dreams, you can't. Now, first of all, we'll mention Bli Neder a few stories of this being inaccurate, even amongst the Goyim. Even amongst the Goyim, it seems to be disproved what he's saying. Of course, the Derech Hashem in front of us, and again, this is all a introduction to our Derech Hashem, so when I read it, I'm just going to go through it fairly quickly. But I'm just doing it in one big box instead of doing it word by word inside the Derech Hashem. That we'll see in the Derech Hashem, he says, clearly, of course, we know that they tell us the future. We know clearly that dreams can tell us the future. And I don't have to look very far, because we all know from the Parshiyot in the Torah, and that means all of the Torah, all of Tanakh, we know that dreams are always there to tell us the future. First and foremost, we're also familiar with the dreams of Yosef HaTzadik that he had about the brothers bowing to them, and he was very makpid. The whole balagan he said, everything that he did, says the Ramban, was only to make sure to make a kiyum to the dreams. You want to make sure that these dreams actually get good. So he saw it as a kind of nevuah. That's what the Ramban says. It was a quasi-prophecy when he saw the dreams, and he wanted to make sure to be mekayim the dreams, that the dreams should come to the forefront. Of course, we know that even goyim can have dreams, such as the cholamot of the Sar Hamashkin and the Sar Oifim, the butler, and the baker, and the old man's men, right? That they had these dreams. We all know that that was a dream even by a goy, and of course it came true. One got hanged, one got free. Great, fantastic. We continue to see even a grubba goy, even more of a goy. Paro himself had dreams with cows and zachem and things like that. And all of that in Parshas Miketz still came true. All of it was a fact. When Yosef HaTzadik interpreted it, it went out to be a fact. So we see not only goyim, not only Jews, but even goyim can have it. Of course, we have, number 4, the Chalom of Yaakov. Yaakov Avinu with the angels going up and down the ladder. And that was there to interpret about the protection that I will take care of you those years that you are outside of Eretz Yisrael, and to bring you back in. That was also another dream. And then if you move into Nach also, we have a few number of places that there are dreams also. Classically speaking, everyone knows in Sefer Daniel. Daniel was the dream interpreter. He was the man who interprets dreams. And Nebuchadnezzar was a really, really nice guy. He not only told his men when he had a bad dream, he couldn't remember his dream. This is such an annoying story, because he had a dream, and he didn't remember what his dream was. So he went to all his men. I don't know why any sane person would work for Nebuchadnezzar, but I guess people worked for Hitler also, and got knocked off daily. But he said to them, he didn't ask them for dream interpretation. He told them, what did I dream? He asked them, can you tell me what I dreamt? He didn't know what he dreamt, but he knew it was bothering him to netzach. He couldn't sleep. It was bothering him so much. He knew he had a horrible dream, and he couldn't remember what it was. So they said, in Kol Kavod, tell us the dream, I'll interpret it for you, I'll make it up. I don't mind lying, I can make it up, just tell me what the dream was. How can I do it? He said, you guys are a bunch of farce, you're a bunch of fakers. If you are supposed to be mechashvim, or supposed to be very chachamim, you're supposed to know what I dreamt. And he started knocking off these guys one after the other. He started hanging them up on trees, killing one after the other. He started killing one after the other. Until Daniel came along, Daniel who was in the castle came along, and he not only interpreted the dream, he also told him what he dreamt about. He also told Nebuchadnezzar that he dreamt about a big golem, a big person who was made up of 4 facets. One was made of gold, and one at the top of his head was made of gold. The chest was made of kesef, of silver. And then afterwards was nechoshet, which is bronze. And then at the feet, what? Copper. And then at the feet was made of metal, and the kapot raglaim, that's the 4th. And then the kapot raglaim, which is at the end, the toes, kabiyachol, over there it had cheres with barzel mixed together, with the earthenware mixed together. And of course we're familiar, we should be familiar at least, as this has to do the 4 galiyot, the 4 different galiyot that we will be going through, or that we've already passed. One was Bavel, Paras, Yavan, Edom. And what interesting is, the end, why was the end with cheres, with clay cheres? That's connected the Arabs, the Ishmaelim. That will be the final galut. Mamish, a perfect thing. After, even in our galut Adom, which maybe came, I'm not going to give you interpretations now, but if it came to an end, let's say, by the Holocaust, which was the final stage, by the stage of the Holocaust, that happened with Edom, but from there spilled over the toes from Edom right into went from the feet right into the toes, which were mixed with cheres, clay cheres, which is connected to the Arabs, which of course we are experiencing. All the galut of the Arabs happened exactly from the time of the Holocaust. It's incredible how this spillover exactly happened. Appreciate that. And one went into the next. Okay? But Al Kopanim, that was again a dream interpretation, telling the future, perfect bullseye of Daniel, that he was able to interpret it. Other places which we know, we find dream interpretations in the Gemarot. Mainly, there's the Gemara, you know where? In Brachot, and Daf Nun Vav, Nun Hey. Over there you have 2 to 3 dapim of dream interpretations. And over there we even have an interesting, over there with Bar Kapra, who would go ahead, he wasn't such a good guy, but he used to, if you paid him good cash, he would interpret it for positive. And if you didn't pay him, so he didn't like you, he would interpret it negatively. So Rava was very upset at him. Abaye used to slip him a bill, and that's why he used to get good interpretations to his things and not. But Al Kopanim, each one had the koach of the interpretations. And yes, from there we learn that our bet from the interpretations go after our peh. So that's why it says over there that you should go to someone that likes you to interpret it. But Al Kopanim, that's what the Zohar says. The Zohar says, Yisaper chaloima b'le'oyavav shifatru oto l'tovah. Anyway, so that's what it is. But you should know that even over there, things that sometimes look negative, interesting. Now, of course, I'm not going to go, the Gemaras are long Gemaras over there and detailed. But even things that look negative sometimes are actually positive if you find many times. Let's say, Chas Shalom, the person sees his hands get cut off. That sounds like a nightmare to me. I think that sounds like a pretty bad nightmare to me. So you know what that means? You know what the Gemara says that means? It means that you won't need Maaseh Yadecha. You'll have so much money, you won't even have to go to work. It sounds like something so bad that you don't want, something like that. The Gemara talks about that. It says if one's legs get cut off, that means that al susi alech me'ashiroto, you'll always have a limousine taking you from place to place. You won't even need to drive because you'll have a driver taking you from place to place. You'll always have something to do. If a person sees his nose fall off, doesn't sound so comfortable. I've never seen that happen before. But if one sees his nose, what? You're turning into Michael Jackson. Saying that's a good idea. You're right. That's if you're turning white. If a person's nose falls off, it says you don't have charon af. You see those good interpretations. There's no charon af on you. I guess I made sure you have to blow, huh? You don't have charon af. You don't have anger. Doesn't have on you charon af. The Gemara even says crazy things, wild things. If a person sees himself having relations with his mother, but it has a certain good sign of things going back. But anyways, the Gemara actually says a few interesting. There's also bad interpretations over there. But Al Kopanim, that's the yesod that it has here. Okay. That's what it is. So from here we see, and this is what the Derech Hashem is going to tell us. And again, I'm giving you all this as an introduction instead of seeing it piece by piece on the Derech Hashem. So from here we see, says the Derech Hashem by us, that there's 2 different types of dreams. And he admits, there's 2 different types of dreams. There's one which we call the Derech HaTiv'i, the natural type of way, which is a type of dream which comes from a very metaphysical type of sense, when a person is just able to do things in a normal way. And you're able to see what your subconscious tells you, meaning the Freudian style type of thing, that whatever you think about during the day, that happens, which is true, because the Gemara itself says, the Gemara also says in Brachot over there, the Gemara relates over there about Shmuel, if I'm not mistaken it was Shmuel, I think it was Shmuel, if I'm not mistaken, that he went to the Shvor Malka, I'm doing this off memory, I'm just trying to remember what it was, Shvor Malka, Shvor Malka told him that said to him that he asked Shmuel, I want to know what I'm going to dream tonight. He wanted to say, if you guys are such chachamim, that's what the Gemara says. Yeah, it's a nun vav. Okay, like I said, it's about 3 daf over there. Nun hey, nun vav, nun zayin. The Gemara over there brings that Shvor Malka asked Shmuel, can you please interpret for me the dream that I'm going to interpret? Can you tell me what I'm going to dream about? And Shvor Malka actually told him a whole ganza maisa about he's going to war and he's going to lose and he might almost die, but he will survive. And he gives him a whole types of things. Something that very much bothered Shvor Malka. It bothered him very much. And he was thinking about it day and day and day until, ta-da, he had the dream that he told him. If you tell someone you're going to dream about pink elephants that are flying and they're going to do something, suddenly he starts dreaming about the pink elephants. He starts thinking about it to a certain extent. And because of the tirda, that it actually happens. Okay, so that is the natural type of Chalomot, which we have, and it exists, and it's fine. And that sometimes the pasuk in Zechariah could say Chalomot shav yedaberu, because sometimes they have truth to them, because they are things that you think about, but they have a lot of additional things which aren't true. We know that by Yosef Atzadik, that Yaakov gave him tochacha, ein chalom b'li dvarim betelim. And he told him that you're saying also dvarim betelim, with the sun and the moon, you don't even have a mother, how is she able to bow down to you? So obviously there's dvarim betelim in the chalom. Al Kapanim, that's the idea that we have here, that the dreams can be natural. However, that's the first one, which, like I said, this preceded, the Gemara preceded 2,000 years, but at least 250 years to any type of Freudian ideas. And I told you, look around, people denied dreams, they didn't hold of it. It was only a Jewish concept, this whole dream thing. People weren't into it. And here we have it, that finally everybody makes money on us, right? All the big popular people that suddenly people believe always comes from Judaism. But of course, the second type of dream, which of course we believe, like I just told you, and that also is what's mentioned over here in the Derech Hashem, is the type that tells the future. You're able to have certain types of dreams which brings you connected to the future, which we have to explain why right now. But that's something that we see, as I just told you, a list of cases, as we all know it's true, also the cases over there in the Gemara and Brachot, etc. We believe very clearly that dreams are there to tell you the future, and also tell you the future to give you tochacha, to tell you to be chozer b'tshuva. But it has in it a real thing. It's not stam. Okay? The Minchat Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Fataya, says that if a dream comes to tell you the future, it's not stam to make you show off. It's not there just to make you look good. It's there to make you make a change. So he says over there, Lamashal, if one lo aleinu sees in a dream that he dies, chas v'shalom, or he sees that he's on the way. They actually say, I think scientifically, that if a person dies in his dream, then he actually will die. You always find in a dream, every time you see in a dream, that you always catch yourself before you die, right? If the guy falls off the building, suddenly wakes up before he hits ground. No? It always happens. Do you ever see yourself physically dying in a dream? I don't think a person ever says that. They tell you that when a person dies in his sleep, because in the dream that he ended up dying. There was once a movie called Dreamscape. You ever see that? It was based on some thing. But that's such a thing, there is such a phenomenon like that also. But anyways, the Minchat Yehuda says that if a person sees such a phenomenon of himself, chas v'shalom, dying in a dream, then he should know that it's connected to the fact of not just saying, wow, oh, I'm so sad, a nightmare, it's so bad. It's a lot more than that. He says, tzedakah tatzil mimavit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving you tachacha. It's time to start giving tzedakah. Tzedakah tatzil mimavit. Or it's coming to tell you, eitz chayim machazikim ba. Are you learning Torah enough? Torah is a mechayah. We know that David HaMelech didn't die. Kozman he was learning, even though he knew he had a gzeira on top of him. So that's also biyadcha l'shanu t'letaka, and that's his words. You're able to always change. Tshuva tefillah tzedakah, mavir mitzvah gzeila. So we see that there is an idea of dreams, yes, sometimes being negative, telling you things which are things, and therefore we have to know A, where it comes from, and B, how to protect ourselves from them. Setter?
Why is it dependent on the interpretation if that is true?
Okay, so that's a good question, sort of speak, but mostly if a person is accurate, so the interpretation is accurate. I don't know if a completely farce interpretation can work. That's a big question, this whole idea of interpretation. I know, that Gemara is a somewhat disturbing Gemara, I understand. To a certain extent there is such a thing like that. But the peh is able to express what the dream is supposed to bring out. Now the dream more or less brings you a kivun. If you say, if he interpreted completely sheker v'chazav l'gamri, complete sheker would not work. It has to be that he takes it and extracts in a different way. Similar to, we're going to learn about nevuah, B'ezrat Hashem, prophecy. That's the subject over here in Chela Gimel. Ruach HaKodesh, nevuah, dreams, that's the whole idea here. And in nevuah also, Hashem gives a clear nevuah. Just each navi, ein shtei navim menamnim b'signon echad. Every navi can do it, interpret it according to a signon, according to his own personality. That I don't want to learn separately, I don't want to talk about it now. But I'm just saying that it's similar with dreams. Kebiyochel, it's a mixed nevuah, if we call it. The Gemara in Brachot calls it 1/60th of a nevuah. And therefore, since it has a certain amount of nevuah to it, so there is a certain aspect of my type of interpretation. If it's close, and you steer it a little bit here, steer it a little bit here, you can steer it in different directions. That's all. Alright, so where do these nevuot come from? It's not really a nevuah, by the way. No one says it's a lower level than Ruach HaKodesh. Even Paro dreams, even Nebuchadnezzar can have a dream. These Rishayim can also have dreams. It's not a type of Ruach HaKodesh, it's beneath it. but it's a message. It's a throw out that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to the person. So where does it come from? So over here we get into the idea of sleeping, which we spoke about a little bit last week, and I just want to continue from there about how it connects to the sleeping, to the dreams. As we all know, nobody can last without sleeping. We spoke about last week a very strange phenomenon that people need to sleep for some reason. We don't know why it happens. A person that makes a neder, if he makes an oath that I'm not going to sleep for 3 days, it's a neder shov. It's not a real neder, it's a shtuyot. Nobody can physically last. It's funny, on eating you can last for a certain amount of time, and a person can starve himself to death also. A person can't sleep himself to death. Just not possible. A person has to sleep, it happens automatically. It's one of these incredible phenomenons that's the only thing almost that your body has to do. Everything else you can kind of stop. I mean, every person can kill himself, I guess. But most things, a person can't stop that bodily function. And if a person ends up sleeping 1/3 of his life almost. 1/3 of his life he's almost sleeping. Today, to do not much. And we saw in the Derech Hashem, simply speaking, Libkarim Chadashim, we do it in order to rejuvenize, in order to be able to get Chadashim Libkarim. That's why we say Moderni Lefanecha. And that's what it is. But there's a lot more to it. And this is the second Akuda which we're speaking about today. Last week I mentioned the Arizal, the Vilna Gaon, and Mishlei, that they both say more or less that the idea of sleeping is in order to be able to connect to the higher worlds, in order to be able to get there. As the Derech Hashem already spoke out, we know that we are made up of a nefesh, ruach, neshama. And that means why when a person goes to sleep, is he not dead? The truth is, the Gemara says, your 1/60th dead. The Maisa la Maisa, all your functions are not there. Why are you not dead? So what happens? We say your neshama goes upstairs, but you're still alive, meaning you're still breathing, you're not conscious, your functions are not there, someone can lo aleinu do horrible things to you, you're very chasuf, what do you say, you're very vulnerable, but at the same time, you're still alive. Now why is that? So the answer is,
The mathematics is that you have 59/60th of your life.
you still have 59 of life. Yeah, I understand, but the question is why? If your neshama is not there, then why do you have so much life? So the answer is based on what the Derech Hashem was telling us, that you're right, the neshama is there and the ruach is there, but the nefesh is still inside of the body. The nefesh still, what do you say? Biyadcha afkid ruchi. Biyadcha afkid ruchi. Why don't you say biyadcha afkid nafshi? Meaning when you're talking about the neshama comes back, when you're talking about when I wake up, you don't say biyadcha afkid nafshi, because the nefesh stays home. The nefesh doesn't go anywhere. It's the ruchi that goes away. The ruchi ends up going away and going upstairs at the same time as the nefesh stays. So that's why a person stays awake at the same time when he's there. Okay? That's why it's called 1/60th of death, because you still have a nefesh, you're still breathing, still alive, but yes, your neshama is upstairs. B'yadcha ki ruchi, paditoti Hashem kel emet. That's what you say on Kriyat Shema Lamita, and you do that on purpose to say, I know I'm giving over my ruach to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but that's still what I want.
So 2/3 go up?
More or less, yeah.
We only thank Hashem for the neshama that comes
For the neshama that comes back, Lukai neshama you're saying, shouldn't it to be. The neshama, okay, it's a little bit Kabbalistic ideas, but the neshama and the ruach are a little bit of an overlap, Seder? But the two kind of go together. Okay, and that's one of the ikrim that of course we know, that a person is, the main of the person is of course not his physical body. His physical body is temporary. The ikr of the ani, who the I am, the me is, the ego of the person is of course his neshama. And that neshama disappears and your body remains dormant over here, similar to when a person's dead. A good example, a mashal to this idea, one time saw, Razmir Cohen said it, that an uber in the b'mei imoy, right? We know embryo inside of a child inside of his mother's stomach is absolutely and completely dependent on the placenta. He's living by the placenta. You take any nezek, any damage done to the placenta, he's in absolute danger. He needs a placenta. And what does he do when he gets born? Throws it out. Bye-bye. I have nothing to do with it. And he just takes his own independent life. He doesn't need the placenta anymore. It's only there as a temporary thing. I don't know why I remember seeing a clip of when the Apollo took off in the rocket. If you know how the rockets work, how those rocket ships work, they have the majority of the whole rocket, that big monster thing that's, I think, about, I don't know how many stories tall, about 10 stories tall or something like that. This humongous rocket, the majority of its fuel, it's about 800 short tons of fuel. I forget exactly how much, a tremendous amount of fuel, because they just have to get themselves out of the atmosphere. and they shoot out of the atmosphere. Once they get into the atmosphere, they have inertia to deal with because there's no more gravitational pull. And they're left with this little cubicle that they sit inside of like this until they take their flips around the moon and come back. Of course, it's all a conspiracy, but I just meant it in the pictures at least, to whatever it looks like. Right? And they're doing that when they go in this little thing. And I just remember seeing clearly in the thing when they detached the whole bottom of the fuel, which is what got them out, which was all of 8 minutes, where they use more fuel than you use in about a year here in Rabbi Genish. But that's all that fuel that they say, they detached it, and they said straight to the pach, like straight to the garbage, nothing to do with you anymore, like they just got rid of them. They had a lot of karsatov, but they just kind of threw it out into the ocean, and they said, have a nice day. You saw before, you know what I'm talking about? That's what they did, they just kind of threw it out. So it's the same type of thing also. The placenta is there and it's very useful, but then when it's over, bye-bye, placenta, you bury it, goodbye, we don't eat it anymore, we don't have anything to do with it. So it's the same kind of thing, not exactly by the way, you'll see in a second, with the body. The body is there as a means to be able to take care of us, but after that, I didn't realize how late I am. But after the body is finished with, we kind of dispose it into the ground, just like the fuel of the rocket. It goes into the ground, gets buried, and the neshama goes up and has a good time until, of course, Tchiyat HaMeitim. Now the only way to have Tchiyat HaMeitim is you have to have the Havla Degarmi. The Havla Degarmi is the essence of the bone structure which stays within you. That is the neshama. Then a little bit of the nefesh remains there. That's why they're still in Yanim to go visit a kever. Why do we go visit a bag of bones? Why do you go to kvarim? What's the point? Or a tzaddik, or if you go to a relative on certain occasions. Because the Havla Degarmi is the remnants of the neshama which is still left over, a piece over there. And b'schud that, he's going to be able to get to Tchiyat HaMeitim. He's going to be able to come back during this man of Tchiyat HaMeitim. He's going to be able to come back. And he comes back at certain times. The Havla Degarmi is able to pull back a chelik of the neshama at certain areas. The yard site, at a certain time the yard site, at certain times when we're supposed to go visit the kever. During those time periods it comes back, and that's why there's an Indian to go specifically during that time period to the kever. Otherwise there's no real Indian to go because he's not there. And that's the idea of sharita nefesh, and that's what we do. Now many people, unfortunately, will deny everything that is Tchiyat HaMeitim. Of course, until they hear the shiur on Tchiyat HaMeitim. Look it online in Torah anytime, the shiur on Tchiyat HaMeitim, it brings to life the whole idea. But we can't deny the fact that we see it happening to us every day. Every time a person goes to sleep, a person has a Tchiyat HaMeitim every morning, machzir, neshamot, lifkarim meitim. A person has a chazar meitim. Mechayei meitim, we say Elokai neshama, we say Mechayei meitim in Shmona Esrei, we say Modeh ani lefanecha. Here we are speaking out, there's literally a lifelong Tchiyat HaMeitim happening all the time, because the neshama goes away and then comes back, goes away and comes back. So even though, yes, we were dead, Kebiyochel, for a certain amount of time, eventually it comes back. And that comes through the chalakim, like I mentioned, from the Derech Hashem, of the neshama that goes away and then eventually comes back. Okay? That's what it is. So what is the reason for all of this Tchiyat HaMeitim that we have all the time? So the Mekubalim explain, the Ben Yoyada Kedushin and Mem Aleph also says, every night when he goes up, the neshama goes up and advances everything he did that day. And it's not only that you're tired physically, which is also true, but you're tired also spiritually. In other words, the neshama needs the petrol to get filled up. He needs a gas check. He needs to get up and get filled up again. Just like your car has to take a break and go in and you have to refill it with gas. The neshama is in a kluv. The poor guy is stuck in a cell that we call the guf, the body. And he needs a little bit of a hitrananut. Hitrananut. You have a good thing? Huh? A wake up. What? Recharging our batteries. We need to recharge the batteries. These days, everybody understands recharging. We live on rechargers. Everybody's plugged in all the time. And that's why he has to go upstairs and he himself. So it's an interesting phenomenon. You'll even find sometimes that you could sleep tons of hours and you're still tired. It's so annoying. Sometimes you ever have a power nap. You sleep for a certain amount of minutes, a certain time, 10 minutes, 7 minutes, and you feel, wow, geschmacka awake. What's the pshat in such a thing? The answer is the neshama did what he had to do. It all depends on how much the neshama needs, how much for a full charge in order to be able to do it. The goof needs a rest and the neshama needs a rest, but in as much as you do it in the appropriate way, so sometimes it only needs a minimal amount, sometimes it needs a little bit more, but that's all that it's required. You wonder, why does the neshama need extra push? Why does he need this extra fuel? So the truth is we find that even spiritual things, and this also we spoke about in the Life After Death term, also spiritual things need what we call mazon ruchani. They need spiritual sustenance. Spiritual sustenance is what I call it. They need a spiritual sustenance. Even malachim, believe it or not, we spoke about by Shadim. Shadim, we said they drink blood. Okay, they're half physical, half not. Therefore, the dam is the nefesh, and it's together. But even the angels, they also eat something. That's what we spoke about in the Shurim, the mun. The mun, which is the food that we ate for those 40 years, is an extremely spiritual thing. We were like malachim. Of course, we know we never had to go to the bathroom. Our clothes were growing with us. We all know all the scenarios that happened over there. Everything was perfect. It was just a year to year living in ecstasy in Gan Eden Kazeh. So too the angels, who obviously live in a spiritual world, in the higher worlds of Yetzirah, but the angels also are, whatchamacallit, they have this mazon ruchani. That's what they eat. They're sustained by the man. That's what it is. The higher worlds, as we know from the Nefesh Chaim, is sustained by Torah mitzvahs, our maisim, what we call the main nukva and the main duchva. The main nukva is what we apply upstairs. The main duchva is what comes from what we do lamata. Main duchva is what comes from upstairs to downstairs. In the words of the Rav Dessler and all these, they call it itrita de la tata, itrita de la ila, the isarus that we do from lamata and the isarus that we have from lamala. All these different types of things that we have. But we give sustenance to the world by our actions. So everything, even spiritual things, so to speak, has a certain sustenance that it needs. So too, the neshama also needs a sustenance. He's got to go upstairs. He needs to sleep. He needs to get a sustenance. He needs that mazon ruchani. Those are the kelim that help it live. That's the way that he's able to survive. And even though he's limited in general by the goof, but sometimes you can't go too long without going upstairs. And like I said, this is the only thing. Even a person in Lo Aleinu could starve himself. He can go under the water and make himself suffocate. A person can strangle himself to death to a certain extent. But to sleep, you can't make himself not sleep. It can't happen. It can't happen, so to speak. Automatically, one way or the other, he'll sleep. Even if he's at the edge of a building, he'll roll over and drop dead. But he's got to fall asleep. It's going to happen one way or the other. Okay, that is the expressive yisod that is brought out here in the Derech Hashem and these ideas. That happens that when a person goes up, he ends up getting this type of thing. And therefore, based on everything we're saying, now we understand why it is that dreams are not only a gilui of what Freud called the subconscious, or what Ramchal himself said, there is the Derech HaTivi. I'm not denying that there's the Derech HaTivi, the natural way, which is that we see things that we thought about during the day, and that thing is also true, or certain fears that we have, or certain traumas that we have from our youth, those are all true. But still, a lot more than that we have, like we spoke out already, the second power, that's the dream interpretation, dreams of the future. Dreams can tell us things that happen in the future. Because once your neshama is upstairs, he's able to see things to go where no man has gone before. He's not limited to his physical body. He's able to see over and beyond. Adam Rishon was misofa olam ad sofa because he wasn't limited to a physical body. He was cool and spiritual. So he's able to see to the end. Not literally see because Superman vision. I'm not talking about that. He's able to see into the future. He's not limited to necessarily time and place. And therefore he's able to finally have giluyim that you never had, similar to what I spoke out to you by the interpretations of Daniel and others that were able to do that. The going upstairs has such a thing, and that's what the Arizal said, that you should know the incredible giluyim that you have. The Vilna Gaon writes in Mishlei, in Perek Tet, he writes that a person's able to have tremendous giluyim during the time when he's up there, and you have to make sure to know what to do with it. That he's able to take advantage of such a thing. You should know a lot of what I'm saying is written in the Rebbeinu B'Chaye and Parshas Miketz, obviously by the Chalomot over there of Paro, in Perek Mem Aleph, very kedai to see. But over there he brings that there are two different types. He actually brings three different types of dreams. Two are the similar. One he says, like I spoke out, Freudian style, what you're thinking. The other one, like we're speaking out, Chizuka Nefesh, it has to do with your neshama, connecting, being able to see the future. The Cholim comes from Chizuka Nefesh, from being able to see what you can while you're sleeping. He brings those two things. He adds one more, a funny one. He says these are the Shtuyot Melach, and he says it comes from food. Fried food. It's eating too much bad things. If you eat bad things, you can end up having, your stomach ache can cause you to have a certain amount of not enjoyable dreams. He says, okay, those are Dvarim Shel Mabekach. Al Kopanim, we agree that there is such a thing as that, but both types of dreams have to be addressed. They both need to know that they come from a certain place, and therefore it's important to know that there are both these types. Therefore, if a person has bad dreams, he has to go to someone who knows how to understand it. Now, most of the time we hold that most of our dreams, because we're on such a low level, is of the first kind, of the natural kind. It doesn't necessarily come from a place. It usually comes from things you're thinking about during the day. However, if it bothers you, there's even something that we call a Tanit Chalam. We spoke about in Siman Kuf Peichet in Ilchot Shabbat, that we even have a Tanit Chalam where there could be such a thing. Person sees his teeth falling out. It's brought there in Siman Kuf Peichet Sifei. If a person sees all his teeth fall out in the thing, so over there that means lo aleinu. It could be, the Gemara says, it could mean that a person says, the dream is telling you that a person will lose lo aleinu lo aleichem chas shalom, to lose his children. However, the Mefarshim themselves say, however, if you went to the dentist a few days ago, then don't worry about it. It's fine. Maybe you went to, are you expecting tomorrow to see the crummy dentist, and you're so fear of what he's going to start taking the big, in my days, nowadays it's easy, it bothers me when the kids complain. In my days, I remember you went to the needle, you saw a needle this big, it's like, how does that going to fit in your mouth? I remember the Ramchal thing. Well, okay, but you were so scared to go to the dentist, so maybe that's why, maybe that's why you saw your teeth falling out. So a person has to know when and where to apply one or the other. If a person knows, it's not from there. How does a person who has bad dreams, and especially children has bad dreams, this I'm going to finish today, because unfortunately we didn't have enough time. But how does a person know how to protect himself? That's why we say Kriyat Shema Lamita. Kriyat Shema Lamita is there especially to protect you from Zera Levatala, A, and B, for bad dreams, because bad dreams mean bad interpretations, and it can't be. So it's good to tell your children to have in mind to say Kriyat Shema Lamita. You're doing it for a purpose for them, so you don't have bad dreams. Of course, we know Shema Yisrael tells us Einon Milvadoi. It teaches us the understanding of connecting to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and by doing that, you're able to protect yourself from having bad dreams. They say waking up Netilat Yadayim in the Boker also. Waking up in the morning and doing Netilat Yadayim, that's also a good way of getting out of bad. That's a good segula in order to protect you from a bad dream. If a person has a bad dream, that takes you out of there. But the number one segula to protect you from having a bad dream, the number one forefront of all from the segula, in order to protect you from having a bad dream, don't watch any bad movies, scary movies. That's the best segula to avoid it. Most children who have these bad dreams, pay attention to Nishkach. I've spoken to people who are Rebbeim or people who are connected. You all see these kids, they saw this scary man and the monster and this. Guess what they're watching? On their little flicks or little this or little scary things or this. That's where it comes from. It comes from watching all these stupidities. The biggest mistake, there's no svar at all why people let their children watch these things, because they're only ruining their situation. Okay, but anyways, that's the other way of protecting yourself. Chazak Baruch. That's the only way to protect yourself from having a bad dream, and this is the story of dreams in general. Okay, that's the idea of having a dream in general. You should know these are dangerous things that need to be protected. Okay, I can't help it. I'll end with a story. We'll just end with one quick story, and then we'll pick it up next week. We'll read inside everything I did. We'll try even to finish the Perek Bli Neder. I say with a big Bli Neder. We'll try our best to finish the Perek, because now that I gave you the whole background of dreams and everything about them, the rest of the Derech Hashem, as we say, is just a dreamboat. Not a big deal. It's not such a big deal. We'll just end with this. In England, they actually put up a organization, a type of kutzah, to figure out for dream interpretations, dreams telling in the future. And it was based on a certain story that happened in the 80s. And this was told by the Balamais himself, by the mother herself. A woman by the name of Mrs. Johnson, so far so good, and her daughter, Mary May. She had a daughter, Mary May. So far it's very accurate, right? Good to go, yeah? Or Mary May. So what happened there in the 80s, he said, my daughter was a very bland girl. She wasn't a girl that was very into, Rabbi Genish's afterlife shiurim or something funny or funny things like that. That wasn't, she was very into doing what she had to do. She didn't do any of these dream stuff and all these types of things. One day she wakes up and she starts telling me, Mommy, when I die, am I going to be buried next to Peter and John? And she said, stop talking like that. You don't speak like that. That's inappropriate to do that. And she said, but Ima, I'm really kind of scared to die. She started telling her, Ima, I'm kind of scared to die. She said, you're too young to be speaking. She was a 9 or 10-year-old girl, and she was saying, too young to be speaking like this. Why are you doing this here? Take a candy. She said, no, but Ima, you don't understand. I had and I dreamt inside of one of my dreams. I'm telling you word for word what she said, basically. And she started telling me about, I dreamt, and she stopped her in the middle and said, I don't want to hear about your dreams. You're eating too much fried food. You're not getting French fries anymore. Finished. This is she told her. She told her fried food is getting to something. The lady obviously knew the Rabbeinu B'chaya that says that it always has to do with ma'achalim ra'im. Sometimes bad food can make you dream. So she said, no, but Ima, I really want to tell you, I saw this dream, and me and Peter and John, and we're all, there's something happening, this building collapsed, and I don't know, all I saw was black on top of the building. I don't know exactly what it meant or what it is, but I saw then we were inside, and Ima, I don't want to be buried. It's not so geschmack. She said, Mary May, I don't let you talk like that anymore. Stop discussing this. It's not good, and that's it. You got punished. No more French fries for you. That was basically the end of the conversation. Towards the end of the month, within the month, what they call a famous occurrence that happened in England, maybe you remember in the 80s, but they say there was a school that fell in it a big mountain of ash, or there was a big mountain, a pile of ash or something that fell on top of the school and made it collide. It made the whole... You know what it is? An avalanche?
It was an avalanche and it covered the school in Aberdare.
In Aberdare. Okay, I didn't know where it was, but okay. It was an avalanche of snow, you're saying?
No.
Oh, that's what I mean.
No, was it?
It sounded like it was black soot or something.
It was leftovers because it was a coal mining town. So
coal mining, that's what it was,
there was a mound of the coal dust.
That was above it. And it kind of avalanche and it caressed the school. It killed, they say, 128 children and 16 teachers. Apparently a very famous occurrence that happened during that time. And guess who was in there? Mary May was inside there with Peter and John. Peter and John were also in there. They were relatives. I don't know if they were mama's brothers, but they were like cousins or something. Mary May was in there with Peter and John, and the three of them were from those 128 kids. So based on that, and the mother's telling over the story, they opened up an organization in England for dream interpretation to be able to see in order to prevent things like this from happening again. So at least we see that we don't make these things up. I on purpose took a story from Goyim in order to be able to make us realize that yes, the Derech Hashem is not a bluffer. He makes things up, and even if Freud wants to tell us that everything about dream interpretation for the future is nonsense, we seem to see that it's not true. B'ezrat Hashem, next week we'll try to finish the parak.